Okay, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make a quick solar shading study for a site model. So the site model that I've made here is just of the architecture and engineering departments. You can see that the engineering department's here, and then the further building behind, and the architecture studio building and terrace, and then some of the surrounding pieces, and a few trees have been modelled as big globes, just to give an impression of sort of how the light's going to fall on this area. So what we want to do is put this into a piece of software that's going to tell us, simulate how the light falls in relation to these volumes. So I'm going to close down Rhino, and we're going to launch Ecotect, which is one of the programs that we were lectured about 2 weeks ago. So to import geometry into Ecotect, there is a range of different file types that you can use. It's got quite a few, but it hasn't really got sort of like might state SketchUp or Rhino files. It does have a 3ds file, which is like you can save it out of Rhino, and you can make lots of triangular geometry. It also has got DXF files, which are common for Autocad, and I think quite a lot of systems use that as well. So Revit and other AutoCAD software. I think that MicroStation should be able to save 3D models into that file type. Anyway, because I came out of Rhino, I'm using 3ds. I'm going to choose the file, which is this one here. And when you select that, it's then going to give me the option of sort of having a preview of this before it goes through the import process. So you can have a zoom in and see sort of how the model looks. One thing that is good to do is try and get all of the model or the context sort of onto the same file once you get into AutoCAD Ecotech analysis. If everything's on the same sort of layer, then you're going to find it easier to process the data. So what we're going to do is try and sort of make a few layers. One thing I've noticed from using this software a little recently is that these files have more faces than the others. They're actually the trees. So the way that 3ds files work is they split it up into triangles, and because they're circles, they split them up into thousands of little circles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these onto their own layer called trees. New zone. The layers are called zones. Trees. And then get the rest of the model and place the rest of the model onto another zone, which was just called context. Okay, if I do show all items, and you can see the model back again. Okay, so go ahead and import that in. Okay, so we've got something slightly strange happening there. I'm not going to worry about it too much. If you click here, you can see the different layers. So area department is one, and then you've got context here. I must have not selected all of the layers, so forgive me for that. And then trees, so yeah, you can switch on and off everything. It looks a bit peculiar now because this is what 3ds is, it's saved in triangles, but if we go to the Visualize tab, then you don't see anything, but one thing you have to remember is that you've got some tools down here which zoom for you. So there you go, it's just hidden down in the corner. The navigation tools are a bit difficult to get used to. Okay, so I've got my model here, and just the quickest thing you can do is get shadows going. So obviously it's putting some shadows down, and if you click here, it gives you the sun path and the annual sun path as well. But obviously we should all know that that is not the direction of north. So we're going to have to tell this software which direction north is. And the best way to do that is to click here. So we're going to load weather file. If you're using Citrix, this software is on Citrix in the architecture department, so you can go there. And if you want to use Citrix, then what you do is convert weather data. And you'll scroll down. You get this menu. You click Cambridge or wherever you are. Then go File and Save As, and save it somewhere onto your computer. and then what you do is you click load, and you load the weather file. Basically, just because I've installed this on my own machine, it's got all of this downloaded locally. But if you're using Citrix, then you're going to have to find the weather data, process the weather data within this little tool that I just showed you, and then you'll have to open it up after saving it somewhere. Okay, so now the north direction is correct, and you've got an idea of how this is also why Rhino and 3ds are quite good, because it maintains the north point when you import it in, and latitude and longitude to some extent. But in any case, what I've got here is a model that can now sort of flick through times, and it's going to show you how the shadows are changing. If I ask this software to do a range of shadows, it can produce this butterfly drawing. If I go to view top plan, okay, zoom in a bit. Doesn't want to let me zoom in. It's quite temperamental sometimes. So I go from 11 o'clock, say, or maybe let's say go from 7 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon, and we'll show steps every 30 minutes. So you got to calculate that. So we're going to do that. Okay, so you can see that down in the bottom corner when I click show the shadow range, it just quickly goes through, and this is sort of where it does all this calculating and shows you. So the image that gets made is quite dark in places, showing sort of, it was just sort of quite counterintuitive, because actually sort of when the sun comes up, there's going to be light coming in down here. So I don't know. I don't know how trustworthy this kind of drawing is. If you go to July, then obviously you're going to get different shadow patterns with more light coming down here, and the roof's obviously getting quite a lot of sunlight hitting them. January, a completely different story. So this is sort of a quick early way to have a look at analysing the solar geometry of this place. And if I come into perspective view, then zoom in again. Sorry, it's still quite difficult to zoom. And also need to tell it, basically it lags a lot, because every time you change view it's recalculating the shadows. So if I turn off calculate shadow range, then it just becomes a bit easier to navigate around this software, around 3D geometry. And so yeah, I can reposition the camera into a slightly better position, and then have a go at generating the shadows again. You can begin to sort of see how the whole thing looks. Okay, so that's one way of analysing it. Next way is to have a go at sort of creating a grid, and then actually calculating values for specific for how much sort of like sunlight hours and shading there is on a specific place. So if we go back to the 3D editor and maybe turn off the sun path diagrams as well. Okay, so just the model. If you left click, then you rotate, and scroll zooms you in. So what I'm going to do is, for the meantime, I'm just going to control some layers and make it a bit simpler. I'm going to draw a grid. So I've selected the grid tool, which is here, and it's giving me midpoints of all of these lines, or endpoints on my snaps. So midpoints, I'm not sure what all of those stand for. So if I select one point, maybe here, and we're going to go then down to sort of somewhere over here, maybe. Basically, anywhere, I'm thinking anywhere in between the departments as a potential site to oh, it's not giving me good snaps. Okay, that's good. Go there, and then come across to this. This is the road, and then into the corner over here. Oh no, that's not the road. Okay, so 3D screwed up a bit there. So, yes. have a look at what that grid looks like. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to delete that grid and start again. But what I'm actually going to do this time is create a new layer for the grid, and I'm going to call it surface analysis. Okay. Okay, delete that grid. Let's try again. It isn't that easy to draw in this, particularly when it's quite a screwed up model already. Go to there. Okay, and then scoop terrace there, so we'll potentially come across somewhere like here. And into there, that's the corner of the engineering. So it's sort of looking at all the possible places that you could begin to sort of place this library building in between. So I've got my grid. What I'm now going to do is modify and do surface subdivisions. I'm going to subdivide it into rectangular tiles. And the subdivision size is going to keep it at 4. You have to sort of know the scale of your drawing. My drawing is sort of 1 to 1 in terms of meters, so that's 4 meters, I think, or something like that. Yeah. If I now click OK, then you can see it's created a whole grid pattern for me. And what you can do with this grid pattern is you can, everywhere that there's a node, you can ask it to calculate how much sunlight is hitting. So what I'm going to do now is go to just check something first, which you have to do. You have to check display, and then normals is what I want. Okay, selection normals. So this is showing me that all of the grid is pointing up, which is the direction that you'd want it to be. You want it to be looking upwards, not downwards, obviously, because if it was looking down, then no sun would be hitting it. But if it looks upward, then it's going to be looking towards the sky and working out how much solar radiation is hitting it. So we'll click off display, show selection normals, and now we'll go to calculate. So we're going to calculate solar axis analysis. And you've got a range of things that you can calculate. So absorb. So yeah, I won't read all these out, but we're interested in shading and overshadowing. So you can do it for a specific period or a certain day. Specific periods, quite a good tool. It allows you to go for a sort of a whole year or for a certain time range. So let's say look at sort of the worst case scenario for natural lighting, which is probably going to be during the winter. Just sort of explore what the winter months do. Of course, actually, that's when we're all on holiday then. So maybe sort of I don't know, or just say for the month of October or November, the month we're going into. Okay, so in the month of November, from 8 until 7 until 5, we'll calculate the total number of hours per month. So obviously in November there are 30 days. And we should be able to sort of work out how many hours of daylight they're getting for 1 month, which should be hopefully quite useful data. Which you could work out sort of at this ground level piece. Actually, that's another thing that I've probably forgotten. Okay, if I just go quickly to Visualize tab, you can sort of have a look at how this model, this surface is looking at sort of its height. So this piece over here is below another model. These pieces are below models. So actually what I might need to do is just raise it up a bit before I do calculate anything. So I'm going to grab it and click move. Does that move? I think that's move. Okay. So that's applied a small transformation. Go back to visualize to see what it's done, and it's just moved it sideways. So come back again. You can get up view side and then it might be easier just to zoom in and move this thing up. Okay, there we go, got that moved up. So if we go now to perspective and then visualize. Okay, so our plane is now a little bit up in the air, which is going to hopefully help us in terms of understanding sort of it at a certain height. So it's maybe a ground floor sort of kind of idea of how the site's distributed, how the light's distributed. So go back to 3D editor, we still got that selected. Go back to calculate access analysis. We wanted shading, we wanted for a specific period, we wanted it for October, or November rather.